The True History of Thanksgiving, A Story of Survival, Loss, and Truth by Jihad Zenith. Thanksgiving is often remembered as a peaceful feast between pilgrims and Native Americans. Schools teach that the two groups came together in friendship, celebrated the harvest, and began a tradition of gratitude that continues today. While a harvest meal did take place in the year 1621, the true story is more complex. It is a history of survival and alliance, but also a story of colonization, disease, displacement, and trauma that Native Americans continue to feel. In November of the year 1620, a group of English settlers known as the Pilgrims arrived on the shores of present-day Massachusetts. They found themselves in a land already home to thriving Native nations, specifically the Wampanoag people. The Pilgrims were not entering an empty land. They settled on territory that had belonged to indigenous tribes for thousands of years. However, the Wampanoag population had recently been devastated by European diseases brought by earlier explorers, weakening their ability to resist newcomers. The first winter was brutal. Nearly half of the Pilgrims died from hunger and cold. The following spring, the Wampanoag leader Massasoit and his people made a strategic decision. They formed a temporary alliance with the Pilgrims, hoping to strengthen themselves against rival tribes. Members of the Wampanoag, including Tisquantum, also known as Squanto, taught the Pilgrims how to plant corn, fertilize crops, and survive in the unfamiliar land. After their first successful harvest in the autumn of 1621, the Pilgrims held a feast. The Wampanoag attended, bringing food. While this moment is remembered as unity, it was more of a political necessity than a symbol of long-term peace. Both groups needed something from the other. Gratitude was present, but so was tension. In the decades that followed, the alliance collapsed. English settlers demanded more land, and their population grew rapidly. They used their own laws, backed by a belief that Christianity gave them a divine right to rule the land. Colonial leaders justified conquest and forced conversion. Native people were pushed from their homes, punished for practicing their cultures, and pressured to abandon traditions. Diseases continued to kill indigenous families who had no immunity. Wars broke out as native leaders fought to protect their lands. One of the most devastating was King Philip's War in the year 1675, led by Massasoit's son Metacomet. The conflict destroyed native towns, killed many, and forced others into slavery or exile. The land that once sustained the Wampanoag was taken under English control. As time passed, colonization spread across the continent. Native Americans faced broken treaties, missionary schools, and government policies that attempted to erase languages and identities. African people were stolen from their homes and enslaved, and many of them were Muslims. Their religion was taken along with their names and families. Some Africans helped shape the early Americas long before their contributions were written down. Claims of Muslims and Africans being here before Columbus are debated in scholarship. What is undeniable is that both Native Americans and Africans suffered greatly under colonization and violence. Meanwhile, the story of Thanksgiving grew into a national myth. The United States government began to formalize the holiday. In the year 1789, President George Washington proclaimed a national day of thanks. In the year 1863, during the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln declared Thanksgiving a national holiday to help unite the nation. In the year 1941, Congress set the date as the fourth Thursday of November. For many Native Americans, Thanksgiving does not represent harmony. Since the year 1970, indigenous people have observed the fourth Thursday of November as the National Day of Mourning. On this day, they gather in Plymouth, Massachusetts to honor ancestors, speak the truth, and protest ongoing injustice, including poverty, land loss, and cultural suppression. Thanksgiving can still be a time of gratitude, but it must also be a time of honesty. We must recognize that while Pilgrims celebrated survival, Native Americans experienced tragedy. The first Thanksgiving was not the beginning of a peaceful coexistence. It was the beginning of a long and painful transformation of this land. Today, the most powerful way to honor Thanksgiving is by remembering the full story, the good and the painful, the cooperation and the betrayal, the resilience and the loss. By acknowledging truth, we honor the Native people who are still here, still strong, and still fighting for their rights and their future.